Samoei Ruto, a youthful 55 on his first presidential campaign, still radiates the vigor of the YK92 era when he made his entry into politics while still a fresh-faced university graduate at the dawn of multipartyism in 1992, while frontrunner Raila Amolo Odinga, more than 20 years older, is a grizzled veteran of the struggle for democracy and human rights, with 3 stints as a political prisoner of the Moi regime under his belt. The question, Ruto versus Raila, who will take it? You have that analysis by Macharia Gaith, of course, 2 pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 and 11. Of course, this is all about that presidential race. Smart, very interesting. I mean, the campaign period ended on Saturday. We saw what happened at the Kasarani. We saw also what happened at the Nyayo National Stadium. Did it make any difference? I think that's the question we need to ask.
Absolutely. It couldn't have been more different, and the contrast is quite stark between the 2 candidates, leading candidates, that's Raila Odinga and William Ruto, from the first of, getting into politics 1992 and where they were playing at that time to what's happening now. Professor, this is it. Here we are. It couldn't be much more clearer as it is.
In terms of the contrasts, yes, one fairly youthful candidate, and on the other hand, a seasoned candidate. But when you look at what the 2 camps are offering, I think it boils down to who the electorate want to believe more at the end of the day.
Right.
Who'll deliver on their many promises. But from what I see, I think both parties are both coalitions are short on specifics in terms of how they will deliver. So I would have wanted to see more. So, for example, whoever takes power, we want to be able to, on a day-to-day basis, as citizens, have a mechanism for them to be able to tell us that we are delivering on these pledges.
Right.
Will we, for example, have a governance scorecard on all of these issues, or that we can track on an annual basis? If you're saying there is a hustler fund or there is Babake on the other hand, how are we going to be able to track that they're delivering?
Yeah.
So ultimately it boils down to believability.
Wanjiru, for you, there's these promises that we hear from the politicians, we can see from the right, Hustler Fund, 100% National Insurance Fund, ensure that 2/3 gender rule is actualized within 12 months, help the country industrialize by helping manufacturers as part of the ambitious economic turnaround strategy, 1-year paid national internship. That's on Ruto's side. On Raila, there's Babacare, Inua Jamii, a social protection program, that's famous 6,000 shillings per month to needy households, increase devolved resources and advance 1 county, 1 product, support the growth of MSMEs, a progressive approach aimed at gender parity in appointments, and the very least adhere to the 2/3 gender rule in elective and appointive bodies. These promises, from where they sit, do you think that voters genuinely sit back and sort of look at the difference, manifesto, and say, I'm more pulled towards this side because these people have thought about this, or I'm more pulled towards, or do you think there are other reasons apart from just the promises?
I think the promises are important because, with the promises we are able to, what they call kuingiza watu box. So, of course, it's important for us to be made for promises, for us to be able to talk about things and for us to, but then when it comes to politics and then when it comes to the voting, when people walk into the ballot box, it's not usually something about, oh, they promised this, so let me give them this. It's usually a more emotional, reaction than actually a rational reaction. And so just like Migai has said, Professor has said here, that it really boils down to who do we believe the most? Who do we, when I walk into the ballot, which face makes me feel the most warm and the most, like some kind of comfort, like who can I say, okay, I am comfortable with this presidency, I'm not comfortable with this other presidency for reasons that are probably beyond me. Or for some people, they're just like, listen, I mean, there are usually very many layers to this thing. I mean, and also depending on the various regions. So you come from this region, so this is my person. Regardless of what they say, this is my person. I come from this other region, we are tired of this person, we are punishing this person, so we're going to, so there are usually many, when it comes to voting, it's not just about the promises. It is the face, it is the comfort, it is who is more believable, who can we hold accountable, who do we know, how do we feel about this person, you know, yeah.
So it's a whole holistic thing.
Yes.
All right, so, just a quick, still on the front page, Uhuru talks to Mount Kenya. In last Dash broadcast, of course, President Kenyatta last evening shared his major successes and regrets in his 10-year rule in a last-minute address to Mount Kenya residents. But that was broadcasted in vernacular, of course, television and radio interviews, saying he was proud of his choice. Perhaps, you know, many Kenyans will not be able to really understand some of the things the president was speaking about, but we'll move on a little away from that. Still on the second page of the Daily Nation, what Kenyans will be voting for tomorrow. The two leading candidates have largely the same promises that are centered on the economy and social protection. So the question would be perhaps, did the messaging come out right? Did the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio be able to, you know, rally those numbers and, of course, get to the point and make the supporters understand really what they are vying for? Well, tomorrow Kenyans will choose who between the two leaders will succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. And, of course, other than the two leading candidates, there is also George Wajakoya of Roots Party and Agano Party's David Mwaure. And they have made myriad promises, of course, Odinga and Ruto, which Kenyans will be voting for or against the ballot. Just moving on, because this is a whole coverage. The campaign period has ended. Now the decision on which side gets the chance to implement its plans lies with Kenyans. Smart, we were speaking to you earlier in the morning, and I think one of the key issues we saw in part of the stories was, I think someone in one of the sound bites said, you know, we're hoping that God will be able to deliver us. But you say, look, it's Kenyans who are voting, you know. At the end, yes, you need God's blessings and guidance, but at the end of it all, it lies with Kenyans.
I think this is one of the sort of questions I think we have to solve with our politics, and because it's intertwined with our culture, and I think this sort of like this set of beliefs that we put out there, that at some point we give these supernatural powers, you know, and being this thing that he's supposed to have given to us, the ability to think and think rationally and say, God is the one who elects all the leaders, so we're just going to sit and allow him to do that. And it plays in our political psyche a lot. You know, it happens every single time. And in some ways, it's sort of like a transference of responsibility from us as responsible people. It's like, we elected these people in office.
As we say, religion is the opium of the people.
Yes.
Not always for good reasons. But I think as citizens, we need to be rational in terms of, yes, our leaders are chosen by God, but our leaders need to do certain things for us. And we need to be able to figure out whether or not they're delivering on their promises. And we live in an age in which we measure things.
Right.
And so if you're talking about these manifestos, for example, how are you going to be able to measure the deliverables? Because that is the only way that as citizens we stay engaged. Because the tendency is to assume that once we elect a government, things will work normally. Right. That they'll deliver.
But that's not true.
It's not true, and that is why every 5 years we are complaining that government is not doing ABC. So we need to be able to remember that our responsibility as citizens does not start and end with an election. It continues, so that on a day-to-day basis we are able to hold government to account and ask them, you promised ABC, are you delivering it? Azimio, you promised that you're going to give us Babacare, Inua Jamii, one country, one product, MSMEs. How are you delivering it? Kenya Kwanza, you said you're going to give us a hustler fund, achieving 100% national health insurance fund, ensuring the two-thirds gender rule is actualized, etc. How are we going to be able to track on a day-to-day basis that this is happening, and how is either government going to account to the citizen that we are doing this in a way that is measurable? And that is why, even if they do not do it as a country, we need to be having a conversation about, indicators of governance, because these are all aspects of governance on which they are promising to deliver. So we must be able to say, even from a civil society perspective, if the parties are not doing it, we need to be able to say, how do we measure, how do we track within the 5-year period, how do we track that these governments or that the government is delivering on its promises? Because that is the only way that the citizens are going to be able to say that, look, they are delivering, and also hold them to account on a day-to-day basis.
And so just to piggyback on Prof's point, every year, so the pushback would be every election year, Kenyans send about 60 to 70% of parliamentarians home. So perhaps there is another measure that perhaps they feel disappointed with the quality of that. I think the number is much higher. I think it's 85% on MCAs. So on the part of citizens, this idea of voting people off becomes this key responsibility that we do. But in between elections, there's really little that citizens do.
Yes. Let me first comment on voting people out. The thing about elections is that whenever you walk into an election booth, there are names on that ballot paper. Those names don't just appear there. There are so many decisions that are made and choices that are made for those names to appear there. So for you to have a presidential candidate, like all those candidates, choices have been made at the political party level. IEBC has made choices, EACC has made choices, courts have made choices. So by the time you're coming to me to tell me to vote wisely, yet I have unwise choices, I think it's very unfair expecting people and blaming people for the leadership we get, like blaming the citizens for the leadership we get, and yet we are usually the last people to make choices after several institutions have already made those choices. And so the only thing that Kenyans feel like they can do is probably vote people out. And maybe that is why in our national voting psychology, we have a thing about voting against someone and not really voting for someone. And that is a problem.
So institutions have failed us.
Institutions have, and we know this. And we know this at the political party level, especially at the political party level. You will front parties because of their popularity, because of how much money they have. And then now you will come and tell me to vote. How can I be wise? Me with Mshwari and with Fuliza, you want me to be wise, but then all of these other institutions have given me unwise choices. Another thing about the elections that we need to understand is that elections happens once in every 5 years. It is not enough for us to say that we're expecting change once in every 5 years. And the voting exercise itself is like, what, 3 to 5 minutes? So you cannot tell me that ticking a box is going to mean something for the next 5 years. I mean, it's important, but then it's the beginning of the democratic process. But then we must, as he has said, we must have conversations about how to continuously keep government accountable. And I'd suggested having debates, like having, first 100 days, not the president addressing the parliament, but the president actually sitting in front of a panel of citizens and just saying, this is what we've done, and getting asked questions. How did you do this? You said you were going to do this, and it needs to be regular. So we need to have, we should normalize a national conversation on democracy, on governance, and what it means to be accountable. And leaders must also get used to being afraid of people.
Okay. I want to come back to that point. Yes, Prof, you wanted to...
Yes, certainly on institutions, I think we have to start with the political parties.
Yes.
Because they are not democratic, let's face it.
Thank you.
And that is why many citizens feel alienated, that they don't identify with candidates, for example, because candidates are chosen for them in the leading parties. That tends to happen quite a lot. So you want to see citizens more involved in the affairs of these parties.
Yes.
You want to see these parties more democratized in their processes, so that they're not identified with individuals. But so far our parties are identified with individuals,
unfortunately,
and with cliques around those individuals. So there's really not much democracy in the parties.
There's nothing much we can do with that, and I think the issue really that must be solved, and I think it's, yes, a governance question, but also I think it's also a sort of like a political consciousness question.
Yes.
That in between elections, citizens must be involved.
Yes.
To be at the end of the day, these people come from us. The people we elect, they just don't show up, fly from Uganda on 8th of August. They actually, or Tanzania for that reason.
Yeah, but the same way that we demand good governance at the national level, we must, or at, I mean, in terms of our in terms of our governance, we must also demand good governance at the political party level.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not, the parties are not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
So citizens must insist.
Okay.
But I think that active citizenship begins with being involved actively in politics.
And not just being involved when it comes to the election, but being involved continuously. Being involved in the county government, especially the budget processes, because I define politics as a distribution and the negotiation of resources. Not this hullabaloo of noise of what we're seeing politicians saying on top of cards. That's the
that's the razzmatazz.
Yes, yes. But the actual politics is how much money goes where, how much money is being allocated to health, how much money is being allocated to education, how much money is being allocated to these other things. What is the parliament doing? What bills are they bringing? That is the real politics, and that is where we need to participate.
And who is participating in making those decisions?
Those decisions, yes.
Is there diversity in terms of representation?
Exactly, and that's the politics we do not see. We see, well.
Yeah, we see everything else other than that.
Other than that,
exactly.
All right, indeed. All right, and as we continue picking on that conversation, look on what page is this? So, all right, let me just say on the 4th page, a tale of two men, how Ruto and Raila have crossed paths for 30 years. They are as different as can be in terms of age, background, career, political inclination, and ideological leanings. But in this campaign, they become almost indistinguishable as each moved into a turf occupied by the other. So in this report, they are looking at the individuals, that is Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto, as two politicians, vying for this seat. Of course, they are the front runners for the State House bid. So will it make a difference? Looking at, aside from the manifestos, aside from the messages, will it make a difference looking at these two individuals and what they stand for, and just going back and looking at their political career from where they began up until now?
30 years ago, Mr. Raila Odinga, then 47, was stalwart of the Young Turks, the activists, lawyers, and intellectuals driving the multi-party campaign. Dr. William Ruto, then just 25, was still trying to find his feet teaching secondary school at some rural outpost after completing university. Professor.
So I see two things. One, you're looking at Raila Odinga, somebody who's been in the reform movement the past 40 or so years. You're looking at, on the other hand, William Ruto, who's risen to prominence in the last 20 years. But when you look at the two, you're asking yourself, who really represents the future of the country in terms of how the citizens want to be governed? And I think the messaging has been that, look, on the Azimio side, that we are the reformers. Yeah. We are the people that have been in the trenches over the last 40 years. So please vote for us. But sometimes you have to ask, is that enough from a citizen's perspective? Because many, especially the younger generation, will be asking, it is very good that you fought for us, thank you very much, but we are looking to the future. We don't have food, we don't have jobs, we are facing climate change, the future is very uncertain. So thank you very much for what you've done in the past, but let us look forward. And in that sense, you'd want to ask, is the Ruto team presenting a better future than the Azimio team? Mm-hmm. Yes, in terms of their messaging, and which messaging resonates with the voters. Trust us, the reformers. We have been doing this for many years. Or trust us, the people that are really looking to the future, the Kenya Kwanza people.
There's this question about history that obviously is part of this campaign, and part of the consciousness and what we've had and what we've seen. The idea that what happened in the past, and you can hold people to account because of what they've done in the past, vis-a-vis we have present problems, and we have a better ideas, basically, and better diagnosis of what we need in the future. So in essence, Kenya Kwanza and DP Ruto have consistently said history means nothing. We have a better plan. We understand the economic challenges of this country much better than our friends in the other side. Their friends on the other side are saying, these fellows, the reason they don't want to look at the past is because their past is, you know, it has all these issues that they don't want to look for. And you have to trust us, as Professor says, from what we've done before. But the question of young people, do young people think that what happened in multi-party, 89, 92 and thereabouts, is the same as what, say, Vasco da Gama did? So it's all the same. It means absolutely nothing other than just being history books.
No, no. It doesn't mean nothing. We cannot say that history means nothing, because, you know, history tells us who we are. History tells us who they are. History tells us where we're going. Like, you cannot say that the history is, it means nothing. But then at the same time, I have a problem with the messaging that says we fought, and so therefore because we fought, we deserve this presidency. So then to me, it's like, is it the power you're here for? Like, that entire messaging is, you know, yeah, it's kind of like, of course I trust you and thank you for everything that you did as a young person. Like, thank you very much, and yes, I respect that. But so to move this conversation forward, are you telling me that because you fought, now you deserve this? Is it a question of deserving, or is it a question of trust? When it comes to this other side, saying that history does not matter, whose history are we saying that does not matter? Is it their history, is it your history? And what is it about your history that you don't want us to say that it does not matter? It is one thing to have a plan, and it's great to have a plan. And but when I look at this too, even when we look at the history of political, even political parties in Kenya, and I stand corrected, I don't believe that we are actually multi-party per se. Like, in practice, we are just many parties, but we are the same party in different colors. And so there's not much
of a difference,
ideological difference here. It's just like what you said, the messaging. So you're both selling milk, but you're telling me your milk has vitamins and this other milk has omega-3, but it's all milk. And so at the end of the day, these ones are members of the political class. They've been in government for a very long time, and we should vote in this election. But in the event that there are people who are saying that there's no point to vote, I actually see the point. I actually understand where this apathy is coming from, because it's the political class. They speak the same language in different accents, but they're still saying the same things. The political part, I don't know about multi-parties and like.
You don't feel any difference? Like, there's no difference between what is on offer?
I
mean, include even Wajakoya and More.
Well, okay, the languaging is different. But at the end of the day, power is power. And we know that power behaves in the same way. We've seen it. It behaves in the same way. Once you become president, we kind of know what to expect. And so, yeah, but one has history on their side, and one has, history will be kind to one of them. History, on the other hand, why they're saying they do not want to be, history does not matter because we have a plan. I'm like, okay, that's great, but
so on the question of history, personally, I think, and my understanding of politics, I've never seen most people run for office, especially the powerful seats, running to change the future. Usually it's about the past and the closet. Usually 150%.
Yeah.
Right, Prof?
No, but I think this is a unique election.
Yes.
If you compare it to particularly the 2013-2017 elections, because of the economic challenges that we are facing.
Yes.
And you talking of a very sizable number of young people that don't have jobs in particular. So I think that's going to be a factor.
It will, yes.
But whether or not the young people are persuaded is a different thing altogether. And you doubt whether they're persuaded because of the low levels of registration to vote. So there's a bit of apathy there. And I think the apathy is also informed by, if you look at the past decade, the Jubilee government promised a lot. What did they deliver? Not much. Kenya Kwanza is these young Turks, let's call them, promising heaven. Are they going to deliver? So when you look at the two coalitions, in terms of the specifics, it all boils down to how are they going to govern. And if you ask that question, you want to look at their manifestos, but you want to look at the coalition agreements as well. And when you look at those two, there's not much of a difference in terms of how they're going to govern. In fact, in some cases, there is deliberate haziness. They are vague. They are deliberately vague on how exactly they're going to govern, which tells you a lot in terms of, and we talk of both coalitions having to get their funding from certain quarters, and you ask yourself, to what extent are they going to be free from state capture, for example? Yes.
All right, you're watching Decision 2022. I do have with me Professor Migai Akech and Wanjiru Ngohi, and we are going through what is important about the papers with Zainab Ishmael on the other side. We will be right back with plenty more of what's happening on the papers and what you should really care about this election. Don't go too far.
Stay with us.
Access to verified numbers of previous general elections and minute-by-minute updates on who is winning and who is losing. Nation Media got you. Simply log into elections.nation.africa from any device and get verified updates and data for your analysis. The platform is easy to navigate and absolutely free. Stay informed with accurate and verified elections data on elections.nation.africa, the most preferred elections data website you deserve.
Welcome to the NBA Finals.
Now this is a celebration.
The finals, when 60-foot prayer can get answered at the buzzer.
It's more like 61 feet.
I mean, you gotta be great from game 1 to game 7.
Because when the champagne stops popping, does anybody know what's left?
Legendary status, my man.
Yes, Dirk. Exactly. Oh my
Greatness.
Dave, this line is not going down, and you're burning up. But I'll sort you out, my friend. See that barrier? Go for it. Yeah.
Bing bang bing, bum bum.
Everybody feel it, come around, we grind, we grind. Everybody feel it, come around, we grind, we grind. Everybody feel it, come around, we grind, we grind. Everybody, 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 everybody. Oh yeah! Everybody in the front, front, front. Everybody in the front, front, front. Everybody in the front, front, front.
The music right here on Nation FM is on another level. We're playing the best hits, the biggest hits right here on 96.3 Nation FM. My name is Antonio Soul. It's the Nation FM Drive every single weekday, Monday to Friday, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The best hits, the best conversation, the best guests. It's all about entertainment, business, politics, and everything in between. Call me Sugar, because I keep it sugar and spice and all things nice.
Everybody round.
It's a coffee yogurt, Dads?
It's not just a yogurt. It's Royal Coffee Yogurt.
Flow with the sweet taste of thick and smooth Royal Fresh Coffee Yogurt. Royal Fresh, the royal taste of freshness.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Decision 2022 and it is less than 24 hours, just about 23 hours before the polling stations across the country open up and Kenyans can begin queuing to vote in the next set of representatives in the next government. Well, we're continuing with the dailies and of course just a quick look as well on the 10th and the 11th page of the Daily Nation. So this is very interesting. No plan B. Residents say when the voting ends tomorrow, they will embark on singing until the deputy president is declared winner. And this is happening in Sugoi. And those are Sugoi residents who are saying they have not stopped continuing with any of the activities. But, of course, they will be waiting to see what will happen. The deputy president's backyard expects his first strike goal into State House. The region is optimistic that their son, now the political kingpin of the Kalenjin community, will clinch the country's top seat because he has campaigned vigorously. Here, Dr. Ruto losing tomorrow's election remains unimaginable. Well, on the other hand, Raila's city bedroom heavily expectant as all signs point to win. The former Prime Minister is a man who elicits love and hate from friends and foes in equal measure nationally. But in Kibera, he enjoys cultic support, with residents saying history is beckoning. And like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, it appears that never before has such predictions been so diverse. And both of the region, of course, where the two gentlemen come from, clearly believe there's going to be a win.
You know, expecting the, you know, it's just, I mean, we know for a fact that it's going to be one winner. It's going to be not two winners. But here we are. We have to entertain, you know, both sets of supporters who think tomorrow they cannot lose. It's unimaginable to lose.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing about elections. You don't get into an election hoping to lose. You get into an election hoping to win. So my question is, in the event that your candidate does not win, you know, what happens? And I ask this because as someone who has been working within the mis and disinformation space, we've seen how, you know, like the information has moved. In the beginning, it was, you know, we were looking at misinformation. Parties were coming at each other with all these things. I didn't mind that. I was like, oh, you guys are fighting against each other. Great. But then towards now the end of this, you know, of this entire process, we've seen sort of incitement. Like now we are now poking holes at the IBC. We're poking holes at the electoral process. We're poking holes. It's almost like in the event that we lose, this is why I want you to remember that this is why I already said that this is why we lost. I already said that this is, and that to me is a bit dangerous. And there's, I don't know, this particular news is for me very, I'm a bit, I'm holding my breath, because so what happens when your party loses? When we say that it's unimaginable for you to lose, but that option is actually there. You could actually lose, and that.
Professor, I like when politicians say, in the unlikely event
that we lose.
and they mean in the likely event.
Yes, I mean, yeah. And so, well, sorry.
And this is all happening because we have a very close contest. Yes. If we didn't have a close contest, if the polls tilted at 70-30% one way or the other, I don't think the stakes would be that high. But because we have a very close contest, the stakes are going to be very high, and so therefore we must be looking to the IEBC to do its work. And number two, because I think there'll be a petition to the Supreme Court, certainly. We're looking to the Supreme Court to do its job. But the question is, will the Supreme Court get it right? Did the Supreme Court get it right in 2017? Will if the matter goes to court, will the decision of the court reflect the will of the people?
If the matter, or when the matter finally goes to court?
When it goes to court.
When
it goes to court, will it reflect the will of the people?
And when you say, will the court get it right, what is getting it right?
Getting it right is ensuring that the outcome reflects the will of the people.
So just to zoom out a bit here, both former Chief Justice Dr. Willie Mutunga and David Maraga, both have very different ways on handling this question of elections. And in a way, they all feel very uncomfortable having this politics ending up in the Supreme Court. In essence, it's sort of like a mistake that these political questions shouldn't be really be answered by this court at that point. Like essentially, there will be like handing the final vote of really who wins and who doesn't. So how do we sort of unbundle ourselves from this matter? Because first, the courts don't have enough time to really go through the problems that we have, and they have to make a political decision, because it really is a political decision.
It is ultimately, it is a political decision. Even in 2017, I am persuaded that the court made a political decision. And it all boils down to Section 83 of the Elections Act, which says that an election should be nullified if it was conducted in a manner that substantially violated the Constitution and the law on elections. And then there's a problem, and or there were irregularity. So depending on how that is interpreted. And we already have a problem, because if you look at look for the act, the Elections Act now, Section 83, as it is currently, says end. In other words, that the substantial violations must affect the result.
Right.
But you see, in 2017, the Supreme Court was saying that it does not matter whether the results are affected.
Yeah.
But so we have this challenge now, because also that amendment to the Act was challenged in court, and the court ruled that the amendment was unconstitutional. And yet, it has not been rectified in the law. They've not changed the law to reflect the decision of the court. So when this petition goes to the Supreme Court, which version of the law are we talking about, number one? But number two, is it right, if you take that qualitative approach, is it right for the court to say that we will nullify an election if it substantially violates the Constitution and the law? Because ultimately, what amounts to substantial, as you were saying, is a reflection of how the court sees it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So depending on how the court is persuaded, one could be inclined to say, but the court is making this decision. Especially if, and I've looked at other decisions in similar context, and they say, let us not look at discrete elements of the process. Yes, we say the election is a process, but let us look at it in its entirety, not at discrete processes. From that perspective, you can criticize the 2017 decision because it looked at discrete elements. People voted, okay? There was no question about the counting either.
The transmission of results.
The problem was, how are results transmitted?
Yeah.
So is that the transmission is a discrete part of the process, not the whole one. Could we go back and say, why don't we just retally?
But we don't have time, Prof. We don't have time. The timelines are really, really short.
Yes, but how long does it take to count votes? How long does it usually take us to count votes? It takes us 4 days, yeah?
Yeah, about 4 days, 4 or 5 days, yeah.
Why, in the 14-day period, why can the Supreme Court say that, look, if the problem was tallying, why don't we tally these things again? Because also, the law allows the courts to a number of remedies. They can order a recount, or they can order a scrutiny of the vote. Ordering a scrutiny of the vote, I think there is no time.
Yeah.
But in this instance where we are saying that there was no problem with the counting, I mean with the voting process, why don't we just go and count it again, and then put them? If the problem is that, oh, you know, you used all the wrong forms, why don't you just use the correct forms and then put the figures there?
I feel we got then to 2013,
yes.
where then the court did the opposite. And in 2017 and 2013, like any of these things, you know, really substantially did not matter. I think they did, you know, a small sort of some polling stations, and like that result is not substantial enough for it to overturn the elections. And that sort of broke the Supreme Court in 2013. They can't win in other way.
They can't win because for me, 2013 and 2017 were not fundamentally different in terms of the material that was before the court.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you see also you're facing a very contested election. So obviously one side is bound to be aggrieved.
Whatever the decision.
Whatever the decision. And which is why the Supreme Court then in how it handles it, it's about legitimacy as well. Because remember, courts are not elected bodies. But you don't want the courts deciding an election.
Right.
So how can they do it? How can they decide that the election substantially violated the law in a manner that is legitimate, that is seen? And for me, it has to be that you only nullify an election when you're convinced that the people can see that this was a sham, this was no election at all. Can you say that 2017 was a sham, that we did not absolutely have an election?
Okay, zero.
I mean, I agree that the courts should not be... No, I don't agree. I think that because the court is a political institution. All of them are political institutions. And I feel like when it comes to confidence in institutions and confidence in processes, we must have places where Kenyans can say, okay, we might have been aggrieved in this area, but when we came here, we feel like we were actually heard. And that sort of balances... it balances expectation, it balances the level of chaos and ungovernability, it balances it. I think that's very important for the court to do that, and it's good that it's the court that is doing that and not really these other institutions. So the court should make, and that's the mandate of the court, to decide, is this constitution, is this not constitutional, was this done correct, have the rights been protected, has it it's the mandate of the court to actually make these decisions in the event that the election itself does not produce a clear winner, or put a petition. And because you have put a petition, then the court will decide on the issues before it.
Part of the challenge relates to the design of our electoral institutions. If you look at other countries, and Malawi comes to mind, they've done a very good thing, which is to say that let not all disputes go to the courts. So they have prior mechanisms. So at the level, for example, of the polling station, they have a disputes resolution mechanism. So they're able to say, if some votes are disputed, if numbers are disputed, somebody resolves it. And records that decision. So subsequently, if there's a petition, it goes to the courts. The courts are then enabled to be legitimate, because you've democratized the dispute resolution mechanism. You're not just leaving it to the courts, because the courts can say, we are going to base our decisions on the evidence that is provided by these various dispute resolution mechanisms. And in Malawi, so it's escalated. So if it's not resolved at the polling station, it goes to the next level. Let's say the tallying center. If not that, if that does not resolve it, it goes to the level of the commission itself. So the commission is made a dispute resolution mechanism as well. And we resolve, I mean, there are all manner of electoral disputes that the IEBC already resolves.
Right.
Why couldn't we give the IEBC
those powers,
the same powers? Because it then makes the job of a subsequent court very, very easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See your point. Zainab.
All right, James, and your roundtable seems very interesting. I want to join you there. But with that, let me just take the last story on the Daily Nation. That's on the 14th page of the Daily Nation. I am proud of what I have done for Kenya, says President Uhuru Kenyatta. And of course, he said this in his final pitch, urging the Mount Kenya voters to make a wise decision tomorrow. The president, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta, last evening shared his major successes and regrets in his 10-year rule in his final address to Mount Kenya residents. The address, delivered in the form of an interview across all TV and radio stations that broadcast in the vote-rich region, happened less than 48 hours to the August 9th general election, and the interview has been viewed as his last stab against his deputy William Ruto, who has been campaigning against. And of course, Ruto's messaging has been to rally the region, which recorded the highest turnout in 2017 when they sought re-election, with President Kenyatta to better the record with an even higher figure. So I think the question here is, President Uhuru Kenyatta's last address, you might say. And of course, this is was addressed to the Mount Kenya region, whose, you know, 5 and above million voters, I think, are registered there. Prof, I don't know, what do you make of this last final address by President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Every president that is leaving office must certainly be concerned about the legacy. Have I done my work? Will the people remember me kindly? And I am not. Essentially, he's already acknowledging that he's no longer president, and he wants to be remembered kindly.
And why Mount Kenya? I mean, all right, so that is his backyard, but
that
why
is his primary constituency.
Right.
Understandably. I mean, as they say, charity begins at home.
And votes also begin at home. they think about this sort of last ditch attempt, if you like, is there are two things I think that are involved here. That one, obviously the president is living and he's worried about, you know, his legacy in the mountain, which has been sort of like a political tool that has been used by his deputy for the last 3-4 years. The next problem is his effort to decampaign William from the mountain. And the first problems of this is really outside, you know, the legal type for campaigning. This, you know, was the first thing that was raised by the, you know, Kenya Kwanza coalition. Is like the president is the chairman of Azimio and is really campaigning at these really extra hours, and that's a big problem.
Yes. I mean, yes, it is a big problem, and I also I know the first time that the president addressed the nation from a vernacular station and was using that was a problem. It was also a problem, even for me. I was just like, you are the president of the entire nation, so why are you addressing, you know, people in vernacular? Why couldn't you just, it's possible for you to go to that station, yes, it's fine, but why are you using, you know, vernacular, yet you are like the figure of national unity? But having said that, I listened to what he said, and he made a very personal plea to be remembered kindly. It's almost like he was not even talking to the community. It's like he's talking to the writers of history, and I don't know why the writers of history now are like in the I don't understand. And so it was very, you know, I brought these people together. I am the first person. I am the person who has brought these two communities together. And so please, could you kindly see my vision? Please see my vision.
So more about his legacy.
It's more about his legacy, and his legacy of bringing the two most rival communities together. And so he was really hammering that point. You know, listen, I did not want to fight. I did not want to do this, but I had to come. I had to shake hands. And I hope you see this. I hope you actually understand this. I hope you know, these other people wanted war. But me, I'm the better guy. I promise I have changed. And unfortunately for him is that his administration has been very hard for business. It's been very hard, you know, in terms of the cost of living. And so I don't know how that sits with the people. I don't know whether that will actually make a difference or not, but it was a really personal plea to be remembered gently and kindly as the man of peace and building, and you know
but maybe this is not the moment. I mean, given the heat of the current politics, this is probably not the moment for the president to be asking to be remembered in a particular way. Maybe I think in the fullness of time, Kenyans will maybe some 3 years down the line will be a better time for people to reflect on. I mean, what was the legacy of Uhuru Kenyatta? He certainly has some.
I think he was weaponizing that, you know, to sort of say, I am the man of peace, but this other one is not a person of peace. This one is a person of selfish ambition and selfish interest and selfish, you know. But me, I'm the guy who I shook hands with the person who I fought with the most. And
yes, but shaking hands, yes, with the person he fought with the most, but driving away the person that presumably
they were fighting together with.
Exactly.
So this whole message has been intertwined together with his legacy, and of course also campaigning for his.
And also I think that politicians do, especially in central Kenya, they like to re-traumatize that community. So you're also subtly being reminded of where we are coming from and what has happened. But now, I know I was kind of responsible for what happened, but it doesn't matter. Let's just focus on what now I've done, regardless of what has happened. Just please, this is the way.
Trust me with the future. There's the question of handshake here, which obviously is the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Was that handshake, you know, sort of like a personal Kenyatta thing or a communal thing that, you know, in 2019.
Yeah.
And he's claimed before that his first handshake with Ruto was actually to achieve the same, the conflict between the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins. So he sort of has a thread here of what he's done, that he's gone further in both times to sort of bring the community and bridge sort of like the gaps.
But was that the primary motive in both instances?
We don't know that.
It doesn't look that way.
We don't know that. We can't, because we don't know that. We only know what we are hearing, and what we're hearing is very deliberate, but the things behind the scenes, we don't know.
It was very good politics in 2013.
It was, and it worked for them.
To get power.
And it worked for them.
The bringing the communities together, many would feel was accidental. It was not the primary intention.
Yes. But I mean, if you're to be fair, you know, with that question still, the 2007, the conflict, you know, that ensued after 2007, that put, you know, Kikuyus and Kalenjins at cross paths, cross purpose, if you like, you know, was resolved by that handshake between him and Ruto, if you're to be fair.
True.
If you're to be fair, also, where Odinga and his traditional support base, starting from his father, the vice president, and Kenyatta's father, have had, you know, fights for the longest. So there's also like communal tensions in there, just to be fair.
To be fair, but the downside is that you're creating other conflicts in the process.
Yeah.
So, for example, I think one of the things that has not worked well for the BBI process is that you're saying building bridges to unity, but you're very busy cutting off
other bridges.
Other bridges.
There are small bridges.
So you're destroying
inconsequential bridges.
You're destroying one bridge to create another.
Create another bridge.
Yes.
You know, is how it was perceived in many quarters. And that is why we are here today.
And you asked a very important question. The handshake, was it a personal thing, or was it a community thing? Did the community send you? Who sent you? Did we?
So there's still a lot to understand from that handshake, and I think it will take us probably years to really know the intrigues behind this.
People are just like, okay,
it can only happen after tomorrow. The question of the handshake will be definitively answered tomorrow.
Sometimes, if you read the history of the liberation in South Africa, sometimes leaders will tell you that I will make the decision on behalf of the people because I feel that is what is right.
Right.
I will negotiate with the apartheid government because that is what I feel is right. You've not necessarily given me the mandate, but in the fullness of time,
leading from the front.
In the fullness of time, you will agree with me.
All right.
Whether that is the case even in South Africa's case,
we do not know. And yet to say, you're watching Decision 2022. A lot to chat about, a lot to go through. Just less than 24 hours.
Less than 24, I think about 23 hours, and if I'm right, 32 minutes. That's when the polling stations will be open. I hope my maths is good.
Mathematicians in Texas on a break.
All right, we'll take.
They all open on time.
We hope so. We really do hope so. All right, so we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking to our reporters dotted across the various parts of the country and how really the situation looks on the ground. Stay with us. The hashtag Decision 2022.
The Capital Markets Authority is the regulator responsible for supervising, licensing and monitoring the activities of market intermediaries. This includes the Securities Exchange, the Central Depository and Settlement Corporation and all the other persons licensed under the Capital Markets Act. CMA works with intermediaries and stakeholders to create a conducive environment for raising the level of investor awareness by focusing on the importance of knowledge, saving attitude and the best practices for investment in the capital markets.
We've since done a lot of those primary IPOs, corporate issuances, corporate bonds, private placements, any listings by introduction. We were the go-to investment banking and still are to date.
CMA collaborates with strategic partners to provide accurate information on all aspects within the capital markets, including regulations which facilitates investors with safe investment opportunities.
We have individuals who use collective investment schemes to set up emergency funds, save for projects, save for holidays, or even idle cash. Basically, collective investment schemes should be your default savings account.
In line with one of its key strategies, CMA continues to support various capital rising products such as real estate investment trusts, bonds, as well as the various listing platforms, with emphasis on how investors and shareholders of listed companies are protected.
The investments that we make are huge and very capital intensive. We have benefited by being able to bring in local third-party capital. So we would start by issuing a bond, as it's a much more straightforward product to issue within the capital market.
Every Monday to Thursday at 8:50 p.m.
Kenya is a country of resilient, innovative, and hard-working people.
The sovereignty.
Our journey highlights major national divisions, the unity that followed, the gradual economic growth, and our daily struggles.
I call upon Nobel Peace Prize laureate for 2004, Wangari Maathai.
Our greatest achievements are our sports personalities.
He's still in podium position, contention here, and he seems to be coming in for the second position. Oh my God!
And our national pride is the unity of our diverse cultures. Our land is blessed with exotic tourist destinations that we boast of globally. These are the deeply rooted principles of our national pride. Mimi Mkenya. The moment is here.
We are ready as the people of Kenya to make appropriate choices.
Hii uchaguzi itakuwa baina ya wafisadi na baina ya Wakenya ambao wanataka mabadiliko.
After months of grueling campaigns, debates and manifestos,
It's my humble opportunity to exercise your right to vote.
Tunakuja kuleta huo ukweli.
it is decision time.
We have election materials which are strategic materials.
We are all well prepared.
As Kenyans prepare to go to the polls, NTV is on hand to bring you unrivaled coverage of Kenya's biggest election yet. Starting Sunday, all the way until election day.
I feel so at one here. I should bring this Zen into my house.
When it comes to all things paint, we've got you covered. We know paint. Duracoat, ask the experts.
It's a coffee yogurt, Dads?
It's not just a yogurt. It's Royal Coffee Yogurt.
Flow with the sweet taste of thick and smooth Royal Fresh Coffee Yogurt. Royal Fresh, the royal taste of freshness.
Well, good morning once again. If you're just joining us, this is Decision 2022, less than 24 hours to the election and, of course, the beginning of the voting process for this election. Let's now cross over to our teams around the country to get a feel of what's happening on the ground with just hours to the polls.
Well, and we start in Bungoma, where Sydney Chazima is keeping an eye on the ongoing preparations. If Sydney is on air right now, let's just listen in.
Let's get Sydney.
Here at Bungoma High School, which is in Bungoma South Sub-County, which will specifically be a tallying center for Bungoma South Sub-County. And here at one of the offices, we are seeing pallets for various seats. You can see there we have for the governor. Right here we'll be seeing this is for the woman rep position. These are pallets hosting the ballot papers for the woman rep positions. And right there we can see we have the pallets hosting the ballot papers for the MP seats. Right here on my right, if my camera person could just come this way, these are the pallets for the presidential ballot papers. We are being told that they are ready for deployment tomorrow. Joining me live to explain the state of preparedness in Bungoma South Sub-County is the returning officer, Stanley Kipkore. Karibu, Stanley.
As far as preparations for the coming elections on 9th August 2022, I can say we are very much prepared. We have received all the materials and we are set to go. So tomorrow at around 2 p.m. we shall be releasing the presiding officers and the materials to the polling stations.
So far, what are the challenges you have encountered, if any?
No, so far we are moving on well. I have not received any challenge as I talk to you right now.
These are some of the vehicles parked here inside Bungoma High School, awaiting to disseminate electoral materials to all the polling stations around this county.
I'm proud to participate in this election as transporting the electoral material. That's tomorrow, starting at 1, and the following day and the following day.
Keeping you updated on matters elections from Bungoma County, this is Sydney Chazima.
All right, Sydney Chazima then, Bungoma. And of course, we'll be getting more details. I can see Zacchaeus Mwasami will be joining us as well for this conversation and what the situation really is on the other part of the country. But also, Bridget Singana is around.
Absolutely, in Nakuru. Let's get to the field now.
I think we should begin with Bridget, and then we'll come back to Zacchaeus.
All right.
Have been experiencing a lot of cold, but today we do apologize for that technical hitch. Good morning, Smart and Zainab, once more. Quite a beautiful morning here from the Rift capital in Nakuru County. And we do anticipate a lot of activities today. Most importantly, we do expect to see the security deployments in the areas that had been marked as hotspots. That is in Molo, Kuresoi, and in Neswit here in Joro. At the same time, we do expect to get a statement from the IEBC returning officer in the county, that is Dr. Joseph Mele, in regards to the preparations where they'll be dotting the I's and crossing the T's in the distribution of voting material. We will be at the main tallying center at the Nakuru High School, and that is where the results for the governorship, the senatorial, and also the woman representative seats will be announced from. The other results will be announced from the 11 constituencies across the county, and we are ready to traverse all these sub-counties to just bring you up to speed on what is going to happen. We do expect also a lot of competitiveness in some of the sub-counties, specifically here in Nakuru County, here in Nakuru Town East, Nakuru Town West. Those are the key areas we'll be keeping our eyes on, and also in Bahati constituency, because some of the seats here in this county are quite competitive, and most importantly, the main seat, the governor's seat, the competition is mainly between the current governor Lee Kinyanjui and the senator Susan Kihika, who is also looking towards taking over from Lee Kinyanjui. Quite a heated seat, and some of these seats also have a political dynamic in terms of the relationship between the president and his deputy, and we will be seeing that clash in how this contest for the various seats is going to take shape. But also, most importantly, in regards to the security of the Rift Valley region, we had a conversation earlier on with the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner Mohammed Malim in reference to how they've prepared to contain contain any incidents of chaos during this electioneering period. And he said that the multi-agency team, the call center that he leads, will be able to also be giving up-to-date or security updates alongside the voting process. We woke up in the morning and around this time the town will be full of people, but I'm noticing that the streets are quite empty and not full, an indication that people are really gearing up towards the elections, and they've gone back to their voting stations. And we will be here to give you blow-by-blow accounts on how Kenyans will decide come Tuesday.
Well, thank you very much, Asprey Ghana in Nakuru, and all the fascinating and important heated political fights that happen in there will be covered by Bridges for you. Thank you, Bridges. We'll come back to you later in the day, but we also have some interesting battles in Kakamega, and our very own Zacchaeus has been holding fort for us. Masame, what's happening in Kakamega? What do we expect from you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We are at the heart of Kakamega town in Kakamega County in Lurambi constituency, to be specific, James. This is one of the counties that we also need to have serious focus on. One of the presidential candidates, Professor George Wajakoya, will be voting from this county. That is his rural home in Matungu. And we will also be doing that there. The gubernatorial race here is also a serious battle in Kakamega. This is an area that we will be having a very keen eye on. 844,709 voters will be turning up tomorrow to make that constitutional right to choose their leaders. We are going to do that for you because we will be very much present in all the 1,497 polling stations to give you an update of every detail that will be happening. From now, my name is Zacchaeus Masame, and now back to you in studio.
All right, thanks, Zacchaeus. Of course, Zacchaeus is our man on the ground in Kakamega County. And look, we will be speaking to all our reporters from the other different parts of the country as well. But some other news also making headlines this hour. Some voting material in Kisii County has been found damaged at the South Mugiranga Constituency Tallying Center.
The damaged materials, including broken boxes containing material for the gubernatorial ballot. IEBC has urged the gubernatorial candidates and the aspirants to remain calm as the incident is being investigated.
Well, the contest is seen as a two-horse race between Dagoretti North MP Simba Arati and ODM party Ezekiel Mashogo of UDA party.
So when the pellets came, it had a damage on one side, and so we just wanted to confirm whether everything is okay. And in that pellet, the expectation of the packaging inside was that it's indicated that the packaging on top of it is 50 boxes of the ballot papers inside it. So since it had that damage, we had to call in a few agents, and we were lucky to get a few within the vicinity to just witness as we receive it, and we had to open to confirm that the number of boxes indicated on the label on top of the pellet is actually what was inside. So we counted one by one, and we were able to ascertain that indeed there were 50 boxes of ballot papers inside that pellet.
All right, thanks for staying with us. So those are some of the stories also making headlines. And of course, like I said, we'll continue to speak to some of our other reporters and correspondents who are different parts of the country. Look, just a quick story. I think here we should mention this on the Standard, on the second page of the Standard. Apparently, it will not be mandatory to cast ballots for all the 6 elective positions. Well, voters will for the first time choose whether to cast ballots for all the 6 elective positions or only opt for the ones they do prefer. The IEBC has changed those regulations, and it will not be mandatory for the voter to cast all the 6 ballots handed to them once they walk into the polling stations. And this was, of course, during a voting simulation exercise that was being conducted by IEBC yesterday. The decision seeks to cure one of the most complicated legal issues that played out at the Supreme Court in 2017 and contributed to the nullification of the presidential results.
So let's start on that. 2013 also had the same problem. There is possibly like 1.3 million people who essentially just walk in the last 2 elections and only voted for the president and didn't vote for any other seat as well. The Supreme Court spent a considerable amount of time trying to understand, how do we call that? You know, it's not a straight ballot, not a spoiled vote. What is that? You know, and I think this is sort of like to cure that, because it will happen again. And we don't have answers as how a person walks in, and we all know the system. You walk in, you're given 6 ballots, and then you make your decision. Then you go and find 6 boxes where you put, you know, all the ballots. Prof, what is happening here?
So, I think, first of all, for me as a citizen, this sends a bad message, because you're telling citizens that they should only care about certain elections and not others. Seats, but all of them matter. As a matter of civic education, if you want citizens to take their responsibility seriously, they must vote. You must encourage them to vote for each of the elective posts that are available, because that is the only way that they'll have accountable governance at all levels. You can't tell them vote for these and not for the other. But
Prof, some would argue that, look, this is my democratic right, whoever I choose and wish to, you know, elect. What if I do not, and I'm not interested in their own understanding, interested in, you know, electing certain positions?
True, but you see, governance is a system. It doesn't work that one will work and the others won't. It makes sense. It just makes sense to be able to say, yes, it is your right. You don't have to vote for all of them. But if you really want good governance, then you must do it we must encourage citizens to do it at all levels. However, I don't think this will necessarily cure the problem that they had in 2017, because they're saying that even if you don't cast your ballot for all the 6 elective posts, that for purposes of accountability, the voter must drop the 5 remaining ballot papers in the corresponding ballot boxes.
Right.
Which I think just makes the counting process, the disputes, it's going to be very convoluted.
It's going to be messy, because I can imagine, so you're counting the votes, this is a blank vote, so you put it there, this is a blank. So where...
What do we call that?
What do we call, like, what is that? And, you know, and we had, and of course we had that conversation.
A new phenomenon
of blank votes. And we do not want to create more problems upon the problems we already have.
And how blank will blank be?
Or actually seeing that Mr. Nguma, I think he's one of the commissioners, saying the law does not allow the voter to give us the ballots, adding that such ballots will be counted as rejected in the final tally.
So we'll have votes, spoiled votes, rejected votes,
stray votes, stray ballots. Like this is, I think, the problem with the complexity of our election. It's 6 elections in one, yes, but also just the fact that how is not practical, that someone has walked into the ballot and they only wanted to vote for 1 seat, so they've been in the queue no less than 1 hour. Assume it works perfectly well. Everyone spends 3 hours plus, but they just show up, yes, on the queue, but so that they can just do a blank vote. That's
it doesn't make sense. I think if you're going to queue, just tick all the boxes, especially, and for me it's important who you're, especially the member of the county assembly, and this is where people usually ignore a lot. The member of the at least the lower please, I don't know why you would line up and then decide, I'm not going to vote for this ones, I would only vote for the top. No, just no. It
goes against the whole essence of devolution and why the MCAs would be, you know, the most.
And if we're talking about my vote, my voice, then why is your voice louder and then it's quiet on this other on this other choice? Just no. This this is a problem. This is a problem. I really disagree with this.
And a problem for me is why it's introduced at this very late stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, why didn't we know about this
Earlier.
all through earlier, that this is how the IEBC is hoping to cure a problem in 2017 Supreme Court that they were unable to answer? Why now?
But also, is this the best way of dealing with the issue? Because all these ballot papers have serial numbers. Isn't it easy? Because at the end of the exercise, the returning officer puts all the unused ballot papers in the same box, isn't it? So why don't they do the same? Because I think the problem in 2017 was accounting for all the ballot papers. Isn't it easier to just say, look, these were unused ballot papers. We have not even taken them out. We've not torn them out from the ballot book.
Yes, and also how are they going to do this? So you will walk in and then they ask you, how many people are you going to vote for? So here is it. So you're voting for senator, for president, so you're not going to vote. So where, I don't know.
Yes, and then they instruct you, but if, now that you don't intend to vote for MCA, here is a ballot.
For the MCA anyway, just put it in the box.
Anyway. Just put it in the box.
Okay.
What is that?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It honestly doesn't make sense.
I think there's still
to
many questions that need to be answered. Well, just a quick, let me do some, a lesson here. So a quick lesson on election day, because I know there have been a lot of concerns in terms of civic education and what Kenyans need to understand on that day. Look, carry your ID or your passport to your polling station, and once you enter the polling station, you will be needed to use your thumb and of course any of your other fingers that work. After that, of course, they will be using the biometric identification using the KIMS kit. Then after, of course, inserting that fingerprint, you will be given the 6 ballot papers: white for the president, green for member of the National Assembly, beige for the member of County Assembly, yellow for senator, purple for county woman member of National Assembly, blue for the governor. So you must ensure that all the ballot papers are stamped at the very back, and you can mark, of course, with a tick or an X or a dot or a thumbprint dripped in ink. So you put your mark within the box and let it be 1 mark per each individual ballot paper. All right, then you fold your paper vertically in the middle, and of course you insert it inside the ballot box. And just in case you're saying if you're not sure which paper goes where, you ask the presiding officer will be there and you'll be directed. And for those who cannot read and write, it is advisable to bring someone from home to assist you. That person must also carry their national identity card and must sign a form to that effect. If the voter does not have someone from home, the presiding officer will assist in presence of all the voting agents that are there. And of course, after voting, you will leave and go home.
Absolutely. There's just one final story that is of importance.
Before you get to that story, I think they should have also told the voters what happens if the KIMS kit is not able to identify you biometrically.
Right.
Yes, I think this is when they resort into the manual register.
Yes, but that process,
there's a whole
process.
There's an alphanumeric system. Then after that, of course,
citizen, and there's a form that the voter has to fill.
Right.
That will then be.
It's part of the accountability.
Part of the accountability, and it's also inserted in the box and taken to the upwards.
Very complex.
Right. So there's a gentleman called Atudonyang who's jetted back in the country 3 days to the election. That's on page 6. He's the current governor candidate, Nicholas Atudonyang, jetted back into the country on Saturday, only 3 days before elections. Atudonyang, a US-based doctor, was elected as Governor John Lonyangapuo's deputy in 2017. And he now is the candidate. He lives in the US. He's been living in the US since then. But now, 3 days to the election, after being nominated by KANU, he's coming to send Lonyangapuo home.
Wow.
It goes back to, I think, what you were saying about the decision-making that happens in political parties.
Right.
If somebody has been absent, like this person here, why should then the voters be saddled with having to deal with them?
The thing about this story and this question is that he's insisting he's still the deputy governor of West Pokot to date, and he's been away, right? He's now the candidate, but still the same problem that we have, just that the political unaccountability of all the political parties. But in many ways, I think how politicians just hold the citizens. There's just a level of
disrespect,
a lot of disrespect,
and impunity and lack of respect for the people. it's really lack of respect for the people. So we elect you and then you go into another country. Shouldn't you be impeached? Removed? You should be impeached, yeah. I don't know why that motion was never raised, or I don't even know how we're still calling him,
He's still, he's still a deputy governor.
Yes. This is a perfect candidate for impeachment, and this is the scenario, precisely the scenario why we envisage that we should be able to impeach the governor and the county government. But as you remember, you recall what the MPs did to the legislation that was meant to facilitate impeachment. They virtually made it impossible to do that.
Okay, final thoughts, Wanjiru?
Final thoughts, of course, when we go out to vote, there will be a lot of information on social media everywhere. So make sure whatever information you receive, especially about the elections, about the results, make sure you verify it before you share it. Please verify any information you receive before you share it, because it's very possible for us to have a situation where something is happening and yet it's false, and then, it's sharing and all these things. So please verify information that you share, especially on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Twitter. That is also another way to have a peaceful election.
In an era filled with disinformation and fake news.
And fake news. Please verify before you share. I know NTV will be sharing, accurate information, citizen standards. So if the information you receive has not been seen on any other, verified channel, then don't share it.
Surely you can't be the first to come up with this. Final thoughts, bro.
Absolutely.
My sense, all eyes are on the IEBC, and I think it calls for a lot of patience. There's a lot of distrust given what has happened in the past, but that kind of atmosphere does not encourage clear thinking. So I think we as citizens need to give the IEBC the space and the time that it needs so that it can give us the right results. I think we'd rather be patient and get the right results than rush the IEBC and get outcomes that we will clearly dispute. So I'm just hoping that citizens will be patient with the IEBC.
All right.
And the courts when it eventually
when we get there.
When
we get there. All right. All right. Thanks, Prof. And I think this is where we're going to wrap it up on just this particular hour of Decision 2022. But remember, it is a continuing coverage till the very last day, where we'll be getting those results from the different polling stations, and of course from the IEBC, and of course that's the ABC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, at the National Tallying Center at the Bomas of Kenya here in Nairobi. Winnie Lubembe will be coming right up in just